Hey everybody. So this is a video that has a kind of darker tone to it, but it is something that I've been wanting to talk about. So I am a 42-year-old mom to a 6-year-old daughter, and I was born in the 1980s, very early 80s, early millennial, okay? Um, and mostly raised in the 90s, you know. Like most of my memories are from the 90s. I have some memories of the 80s, but it's more of a blur because when the 80s ended, I was 7 years old compared to from the ages of 7 to 17 in the 1990s, 7 to 17, because in 1999, I turned 17, so that's why I say 7 to 17. Party like it's 1999. Anyway, I remember they played the hell out of that song as we knew they would when 1999 hit. Anyway, why am I telling you all this? Because I used to think, with the world being what it is, with all the darkness and bad things that have happened in this world, I used to think that I really wanted to go back to another time, that I wanted to go back to the 90s, that I wanted to go back to the 80s, probably more the 90s than the 80s, and the 80s, even though, like I said, my memories of the 80s are very vague, especially from a cultural standpoint. Like, it's one thing to have memories of like my family and, that kind of thing versus culturally. Like, oh yeah, don't you remember when the Bill Cosby sweaters were hot? And don't you remember when, this was in and that was in? Not so much, but I do love nostalgia and everything. But I had a very dark thought, and I haven't been able to shake this dark thought since then, which is that I was abused as a child multiple times. And like, I felt very misunderstood as a child. I went through bullying. I went through a lot of like really crappy stuff. Now, my true default is that I am a happy and hopeful human being. But I have definitely been through some dark shit in my life. But I do think of myself, and it's not a mask. It's not me. Like, if I could be as honest about this stuff, I could be honest and say, I'm depressed, everybody. Life sucks. Like, no, for whatever reason, like, I'm in this space, and I've been in this space where, I don't know how to explain it, but I haven't let those traumas break me and turn me into a sad sack of a person, where they could have, and they haven't. But here's why I mention it, though. That's not why I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing it up to say that it hit me recently, and I said this to someone. I was like, I'm happier with my life now than I was when I was a child. Because I hear a lot of people say, oh man, becoming an adult is a scam. It's a scam. Not if you had a traumatic childhood, it's not. If you had a traumatic childhood, then being an adult can actually be quite liberating, because now you're in control of your own life. You don't have to hope that the adults around you are better people than what they are, or what have you, because you're the adult in your life. You can get up, like if you're in a bad relationship with a grown-up, you can get the fuck out of that bad relationship. Whereas like when you're a kid and you're stuck, then you're just stuck, I mean, it's something really sad about that. One time I remember my ex said something to me about bad parents, and I can't remember the exact quote, but just something, he said something about bad parents and about how like it sucks when you're a kid and you're not being treated well. And I don't remember the context. I wish I could remember it. But it's like something that's kind of stuck with me. And so I do try to listen to my daughter when she's trying to tell me something, even when I'm like frustrated in the moment, like she did something disobedient or, whatever, and I'm frustrated in the moment. But when she's trying to tell me something, I do try to listen to her, because I remember being a kid and just getting whoopings, quote unquote. We called them whoopings. Nowadays the cute way of saying it is spankings. No, those were whoopings, okay, with belts and cords and all kinds of stuff. And I'm not like specifically coming from my parents or anything. This was something that was just the culture at the time of multiple people, that this was just like how it was. One of my most memorable whoopings was done to me by cousins of mine, well, cousins and aunts of mine who weren't even adults when I was born. They were still children themselves when I was born. Like they were older than me, but they were, let's say, 9 to 13, 14, 15 years older than me, and I was a kid. And I remember, it's a stupid story, but it happened back in the 90s. My cousins and I had walked down the street. My grandparents lived on the same street as my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother and my grandmother lived on the same street, okay? And they were literally a few houses down from each other. My cousins and I walked down to the great-grandmother's house, I think, and then a cousin who's on my friends list now, and she may or may not remember this story, but she was like egging on my aunt, who was a few years older than her. She was like a young aunt, a few years older than her. They were both older than me, but like I said, when I was born, they weren't adults yet. Anyway, was egging her on to, quote unquote, whoop me. And I was trying to like talk my way out of a whooping because I was wrong from their perspective for walking out in the rain. And I think I was the only one that got a whooping. I'm not sure, but it was just like very, very hurtful. And it was one of the many incidents that kind of made me like not really want to be around that side of the family. That's my dad's side of the family that this happened on. Anyway, I'm going into family trauma stuff, but my point is that when I think about the shitty things that happened to me as a kid, and I'm not saying that like, oh, that's the worst thing that can happen. And, for those of you who would knock what I'm telling you and be like, oh, okay, you're just being a big baby and I went through worse, then I feel sorry for you that you went through worse, okay? my prayers to you that you went through worse, because that sucks for you, but it doesn't mean that other people's pain doesn't matter. Damn, sorry, respectfully, I'm sorry that you've been through worse. I am, but it doesn't mean that other people's trauma doesn't matter. And I definitely strive not to be that parent with my daughter, One of my biggest things is making sure that my daughter never ever has to endure the abuse that I once did in terms of sexual abuse. Like, I don't ever want her to have that trauma, and that's why I am protective of my daughter. And I had someone sneer at me not too long ago about it. And I'm like, welp, I'd rather be a helicopter mom who's protective of my daughter than, be a sad story on the news or have my daughter grow up and feel like she wasn't protected. So anyway, I know this is very dark, but my long and short of it is that understanding how shitty things were for me as a child, like the sadness and bad things that I went through, then no, I don't want to go back to that time and be a kid anymore. That's another thing. Like, when people are like, man, I wish I was a kid again. In the words of another friend of mine, must be nice. Because I'd like, oh, okay, good for you, girl, that you had a good childhood, because can't relate. Not that there were no bright spots in my childhood. It's just that if I had to compare, like, you know, the good to the bad, I'm sorry, the bad is winning. You know, most of my memories are thinking about the bad things that happened to me versus the good things that happened to me when I was younger, you know. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, sorry to depress you guys, okay? My bad. But I just wanted to get that off my chest. Not all of us had a great childhood, and at the same time, you know, it doesn't mean that you let it break you. You get to decide as an adult how you want to live your life and everything. And, you know, I'm not a depressed person for the most part. I've had depression in my life, but I'm not a depressed person for the most part. I'm actually a pretty happy and hopeful human being. So I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea, like, oh my gosh, like this poor girl or something. Like, no, I'm okay. But that's why I don't want to go back to my past. Just me. But, you know, if you think to yourself, man, I wish I was a kid again, just know that on some level I do envy you. You know, not in a hateful way. When I say I'm jealous of somebody or that I envy somebody, it's not hate at all. It's like saying, "Aw, I wish that was my story," but it's not my story. So that's it. Thank you. Bye.